Hello and welcome back to Burning Bones, the outward run where I have no armor and can deal only fire damage. In the last episode, I defeated the Guardian of the Compass and said I'd head to Berg to finish my character. After preparing for a bit, I begin the journey to Berg and brave the desert, only stopping to take care of some pests who escaped my massacre from the previous episode. I eventually get to the entrance to Enmerkar Forest and travel there. Within Enmerkar, I encounter an unforeseen problem. It seems that holding out a giant staff constantly on fire makes it harder to see enemies, and makes you easier for enemies to see. Despite a few jump scares along the way, I do eventually reach Berg. In Berg, I use the extra money from Levant to buy the breakthrough skill for Wild Hunter, Survivor's Resilience. The rest of the skill tree provides no real benefit for me, but the passive plus 40 max HP from Survivor's Resilience makes me much tankier, incredibly important for surviving some late game enemies. This extra HP also helps me deal with the fact that I have a chronic inability to play this game well, giving me a little bit more leeway to survive my own stupidity. While I'm here, I also try to get the Mist boon, the elemental boon for ethereal damage, and the last boon I need for this run. I had actually never gotten this boon before, so I didn't know who the trainer was or where they would be. Refusing to look at the wiki for such information, I decided to talk to all the important people in town to see if one of them taught it. However, I have a certain problem where, when I'm asked to make a blind decision, I will always choose incorrectly. As such, the trainer was inevitably the last person I talked to. Confident with my newfound survivability, I begin preparing for my journey to start finally beating this game. That is, until I remembered I still needed a couple more skills from the DLC area before I move on. Fortunately, the skills I need are not expensive. Unfortunately, the travel to and from the DLC area is. So I step out of Berg and look for my moneymakers. Almost immediately, I encounter an ash giant. Previously, I would have run from such a creature, but with the recent buffs to my character, I wanted to see how strong I actually was. I begin combat with how I usually start against a strong foe. I set down a sigil and light it up with flames, then draw the monster's attention with a fireball. It charges at me to attack, and I roll too quickly and get punished for it. However, with the extra health, what would have been a powerful hit did less than a third of my health and damage. The strike made me a bit nervous though, so I decided to play the rest of the fight safely, i.e. I ran away and threw elemental discharges when I was at a safe distance. The strategy seemed to work well, but the odd sight of a skeleton wielding a giant flaming stick, ironically running for its life from a flaming giant wielding a proportionately sized stick, was too enticing to be left alone. As such, a few bandits we ran past decided to join this circus sideshow for some reason, chasing us both while I worked to fell the giant. After a few more hits, the ash giant goes down. Without its threatening presence, I can quickly defeat the two bandits who chased us and finish the fight. Now, this part is a slight tangent from the progression of the story, but I found it interesting enough that I really wanted to talk about it. While procrastinating on editing this video, I read up a bit on Outward's lore, and the lore for the giants in this world is wacky. It states, and this is a genuine fact, that they are quite literally aliens. They came down from the Red Moon to escape a world-ending scenario caused by their quick technological progress. Once here, they decided to settle on this world and go primitive to prevent further catastrophe. The reason I found this so interesting is that it retroactively recontextualizes the fight as some sort of schlocky low-budget horror movie scenario. Skeletons versus aliens. Just that name brings the image of a direct-to-DVD Halloween film that you watch because it's so bad. Anyway, after that fight and a few others, I finally had enough money to travel to the DLC city, Harmattan. Harmattan and the surrounding area, the Antique Plateau, are easily my favorite places in the game. I enjoy the aesthetic, the available classes, and the enemy types found here. On top of that, it easily has the most detailed and, in my opinion, the most fun parallel quests in the game, Rust and Vengeance. Perhaps that is why this is literally the only time I will ever set foot here for the whole run, merely coming to grab the skills Scorch Hex, Efficiency, and Metabolic Purge before heading out. The first skill, Scorch Hex, causes a debuff on enemies, reducing fire resistance. This is the only way I'll be able to fight some foes and the entire reason I came here. Efficiency increases my max stamina by 25, a nice little buff that I grab while I'm here. The last skill, Metabolic Purge, increases my resistance to gaining a certain stat called Corruption. Corruption causes a variety of debuffs, and unfortunately I will have to go through certain areas that will corrupt me, so buying this here helps me to save on having to buy cures later. After buying the skills, I pay the Caravaner to get sent back to a randomly picked city. Luckily, I get Cierzo. With my character finally complete, I head out to start a faction quest and begin beating this game. In Outward, there are 4 factions to go through the main storyline with: the Blue Chamber Collective, the Holy Mission of Alat, the Heroic Kingdom of Levant, and Sorobor Academy. The Blue Chamber is based in Berg and is basically the Illuminati, but they are fighting against an analog for the devil using dear dead Grandpappy's knowledge and arcane power. The Holy Mission is based in Monsoon and is basically the militarized part of the Latin Church during the Crusades, except God descends and can give you the ability to absolutely smite your enemies. The Heroic Kingdom is based in Levant and is basically the US during the late 1700s, except they went to the desert and were escaping a democracy to go to the absolute best form of government, a monarchy. And finally, Sorobor Academy is based in Harmattan, and is basically Hogwarts, but the Disneyland version where it's hyper-focused on commerce and consumerism. Oh, also there's this whole subplot about intelligent monsters trying to be free of their hatred or something. I never really paid attention to it. Since I am not a godless heathen, I decide to go to Monsoon for the Holy Mission. More accurately, I go for the variety of buffs it provides, which will make me slightly tankier, help me manage my survival needs, and reduce my mana and stamina consumption. After a short trip, I make it to Monsoon and attempt to pledge myself to their cause. Sadly, to believe in the god of this world, I need to show that I am worthy. I either have to bribe someone with a discipline potion, go into the dangerous marsh and collect the essence of eaten fireflies, or prove that I can do magic. Obviously, I picked the magic one because I am lazy. Finally joining a faction to continue the main story quest, I was given a full 12 hours of gameplay ago. Ready and raring to go, I get my first task. Wait for 3 full endgame days while they decide on what the heck to do with me. I first try to pass this time by killing some enemies, but after realizing how long I've been streaming, I instead sleep for 3 days to start the quest quickly. Is this what they call being a lazybones? I'm sorry. Once done becoming one with the earth, I talk to Elenara, the quest giver for most of this line. She asks me to smoke a greasy fern next to a nearby shrine and tell her what I saw. After connecting with my spiritual side and receiving a vision, I return to Elenara and she tells me to clear out the corruption of a tomb in Chersonis. Now here's a bit of a confession. I have never actually played through the Holy Mission quest line. I always thought that you got a disease that would permanently kill your character after 30 days once you completed the line, so I avoided it at all costs. However, while researching the possible rewards from faction quests to properly build my character, I read that the permadeath disease is optional. As such, this is actually my first time through the quest line, and I thought it'd be fun to go in blind. That said, I have a bit of a problem when it comes to reading quest objectives all the way through. So, when I saw the words Tomb, Corrupted, and Chersonis all in the same sentence, I immediately thought of the corrupted sections of Ghost's Pass that I always ran away from and never explored. Sadly, this was incorrect. They had instead wanted me to go to the Corrupted Tomb, a dungeon literally a short distance north of the Ghost Pass that my blind ass couldn't see. Thus, I sprinted to Ghost's Pass with all the confidence ignorance could provide, stopping briefly to consider if I should kill a pearl bird along the path. My conscience eventually takes over, and I decide to let it be as thanks for what it has taught me. Clearing Ghost's Pass was much quicker than before, owing mainly to a stronger character, but also to the fact that I have grown comfortable with the playstyle this build excels at. Once all the ghosts were laid to rest, I began working up the courage to explore the uncharted territory, hyping myself up for a while before descending to literally only one room with a chest guarded by 2 Illuminator horrors, a very weak enemy. I was confused for only a moment until I realized how much of an idiot I am and headed out to the previously discussed correct location, the Corrupted Tombs, only wasting a solid 30 minutes of my already tight time frame on this detour. The bridge there was being guarded by a shell horror, a reasonably strong enemy that I wanted to avoid fighting if I could, as it would probably require a firestone or a few fire traps. I hesitated for a little bit before realizing the shell hoarder was fighting something. A pearl bird. Perhaps as a sign of goodwill for my prior pacifism, the pearl bird gets the shell horror's attention before leading it away and clearing the path for me. Not one to waste a gift, I run past the bridge to the safety of the Cabal Hermit's Tower, taking some time there to sell off my goods, restock some supplies, and rest before challenging the corrupted tombs. With only 20 minutes left before I had to end stream, I was only hoping for a preliminary look before finishing it in the next episode. However, after clearing the enemies outside and entering the dungeon, I was met with a surprising foe. In the first room, there was a unique Wendigo and a Frost Elemental. Two very strong enemies, especially when together. Thankfully, I isolate the Frost Elemental and take it out without the Wendigo realizing, leaving just him to deal with. Now, owing to the fact that I do very little research for the dungeons of this run, I mistook this Wendigo as the first cannibal, an enemy almost as strong as the Guardian of the Compass. Instead of the dinky accursed Wendigo it actually was. The accursed Wendigo was an enemy who, against my fire damage, was actually weaker than a normal Wendigo. Due to my misconception though, I hyped myself up against it and set a variety of traps before taking it on. I start combat with the strongest spell combos I have access to, and due to the fact the enemy was so unexpectedly weak, not even me falling down like an idiot and getting stuck on level geometry could save it from dying before I could finish this sentence. With presumably the strongest enemy in the area felled, I meet up with Oliel and search the dungeon a bit before running out of time for the stream. Thus, I head back to the Cabal Hermit's Tower to rest up before finishing this and hopefully the rest of the Holy Mission's questline. But that, of course, will have to wait for the next episode. Thank you for watching all the way through. If you liked the video, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe so you can get an alert when I make the next part. Whether you do or you don't though, I hope you have a good day.